Welcome to another episode of Insights and Ideas, my video blog. So, one of the reasons I'm doing a video blog is to funnel interest and readership and participation to my blog. Blogging is something that was very, very popular over 15 years ago when I launched this website called Insights and Ideas. It's a WordPress blog, and the link to it is on my YouTube page. I haven't been very successful in generating viewers, but because I spent so much effort starting back in 2008, literally July 15th of 2008, that's 17 years ago, and I'm still at it today, blogging through video on the theme of insights and ideas. I thought I would start at the beginning, and I don't think I'll be able to um, test your patience and have you sit through a summary of every single blog post for the last 17 years. That would be unduly pedantic. But just to maybe motivate you to check me out, my very first blog post back then in 2008 was entitled, I Am Not the Heavy That You Think I Am. And as a writer, I always feel the need to kind of justify and explain myself to you, the readers. And I feel the same way as a video content producer or a digital creator, is what the term is, that I know your time is valuable and I try constantly to justify myself so that you'll be motivated to come back. Um, so I do try to be honest, and in this blog post entitled I'm Not the Heavy That You Think I Am, I discussed the theme of honesty and how honesty is a double-edged sword, and that there have been times in my life where I felt too honest and brutally hard on myself, and I've tried to go a little easier on myself. And this often left me feeling that other people saw me as an unduly serious and heavy kind of a character. Um, Now, this blog post goes into some painful topics related to incest and emotional darkness, which I'm not going to bore you with or burden you with a repetition about, but also some reflection on happy times when I was young, um, doing simple things like riding my bicycle on a beautiful day. Um, Gosh darn it. This is a long post, and it also covers some feelings about my parents, including my father. May he rest in peace. My father was alive at that time. I was fairly candid and fairly blunt, and it is what it is. It's a statement. So that was back on July 15th, 2008. And that's just sort of a little taste or a preview of what the beautiful, wonderful experience of blogging was all about for me then. Honestly, if I were the type who read people's blogs, I don't think I would want to go back 17 years, but I would also be genuinely curious about the writer's thought process and how he or she came up with the notion of a blog on the idea of insights and ideas. We all have insights and ideas. And I said this the other day. What are your insights? What are your ideas? To me, life is a process of finding meaning. I'm not going to say meaningfulness because that starts to sound too much like mindfulness. And that's kind of someone else's agenda. That's not me. That's not Carl Birman. And by the way, if you found me by searching or Googling or following Carl Birman, you should know something about who you're dealing with. So I was born and raised as Carl David Birman. My first name, Carl with C, middle name, David, like the king from the Bible. And Birman, as you know, is spelled with an I and no D. I'm not a Birdman, and I'm not a beer can, and I'm not from Alcatraz, even though a nickname I had in junior high was the Birdman of Alcatraz. Mr. Birman is who you've got right here. So after a couple of weeks after I was born, my folks decided that they liked my middle name better than my first name, and they began calling me David by my middle name. This became a bit of a source of conflict in elementary and junior high school, particularly when substitute teachers were calling attendance and it was my turn. And I'm sure this is all now done digitally, so there would be no time spent for people to stand up and call and announce themselves or identify who they were to a substitute teacher. But it always happened that when the sub called out my name, they would mess it up and they would call out Carl Birman. And then all the class would break into laughter because, first of all, that's elementary school and junior high. If you can find an excuse to make fun of another kid, you will. Number two, everyone is a conformist, even more so, I think, in junior high than in elementary. And so a kid who's known as David being called Carl is just something that makes everybody delirious with giggles. And it made me incredibly uncomfortable and embarrassed to have to stand up and correct the teacher and say, yes, that's me, but I'm actually David, not Carl. So this persisted into adulthood, and it manifested in adulthood at tax season when the government insisted that they had a tax return required from Carl Birman, when in fact the person who wanted to file the return was David Birman. So the compromise I came up with, which the Internal Revenue Service seemed to tolerate, was using the initial C followed by my full middle name, David. So for many years as a young adult, I was C. David Birman, but people who know me and were in my circle thought of me as David, not as Carl. Well, flash forward to the 1990s, and I was going through a lot of soul searching as described in this blog post. And I decided it would be really fun to try out using my given name of Carl. Now, there's a religious aspect to this too, even though I'm the least religious person I know, and a true skeptic and a struggler. I am not a believer of any religion. I'm a questioner. I love the John Lennon song called God, and I'm not going to take your time tonight to recite the lyrics of that song. But if you want to know my philosophy about religion, listen to that song because it's all about God and it's all about love. And that's kind of who I am after 64 and a half years. Be that as it may, David is obviously a Jewish name. It's from the Old Testament. It reflects upon one of the great kings of Israel, King David. And so it also means beloved of God in Hebrew. The name David means beloved of God. In Hebrew, it's pronounced David. David, beloved of God. I'm not a speaker of Hebrew, but I researched my own name and I know for a fact that that's a pretty awesome name. So what a wonderful name to be known by. And so, but Carl is also a cool name. Don't ask me what it means. I've looked it up. I know it's related to the name Charles, but I honestly couldn't tell you what the name refers to. It's not a Jewish name in the Old Testament sense, but it's certainly a nice classical name. So at that time of my life in the 90s, I was living and working in central Brooklyn. And although it, in many respects, was a Jewish neighborhood, again, I was not Jewish identified. And I thought rather than be David Berman, which is, in my judgment, a very Jewish sounding ethnic kind of name, wouldn't it be cool to be known as Carl? Well, it happened that at that time I was working at a job on Church Avenue in Flatbush. And the folks at the office met me as Carl, and they immediately began calling me either Carol or Carl Davis. It was just astonishing how they anglicized my name from Carl Berman to Carol Berman, which I think could be a male or female name, but as a male name, it's perfectly legit, Carol. It's unusual. But I think of Carol O'Connor, the famous, I guess that was an actor. It's obviously a woman's name too, but that was them. That wasn't me. I spelled Carl, Carl. And so it could also be spelled with a K or what have you. But be that as it may, people started calling me Carl Davis, taking my middle name David and turning it into a last name. It was just fascinating how people anglicized my name, and I found it amusing and entertaining. And being that I had a whole swath of community that knew me by David, and then a whole bunch of other people from Flatbush who knew me as Carl, the inevitable solution was that people would end up starting to call me Carl David Berman. True story. You flash forward from that point in the 90s when I was not a litigation attorney to approximately 2010, 2012. There is a wonderful, wonderful clerk in the White Plains Family Court in Westchester County. Uh, I'm going to call her Mary because I don't want to embarrass her if she happens to be watching my channel. That's not her real name. Be that as it may, she's a very prominent clerk. And every now and then the clerk in the family court had to find Mr. Birman. So she would come out onto the what they call the floor, which is the public area of this courthouse where the attorneys and the litigants would mill about. And she would say, Carl David Birman. And she'd see me at a distance. Carl David Birman. Now I knew I was in trouble. With that particular clerk, if I had the misfortune of being called by my entire name, the first name, the middle name, and the last name, it meant that I was needed and wanted and probably on the hot seat with that clerk, Mary's judge. And I take that as a badge of honor because if Mary needed me so badly that she was going to take the time to say my whole name, then it's surely I was an important lawyer. And I truly believe that being useful in the court is part of my mission in life. I'm an officer of the court. But hey, this entertaining video blog post is already about 15 minutes long. And I have thrown out a number of my own personal insights and ideas. And it does come back to this theme here in this initial blog post from July of 2008. I I'm good at playing the part of a very serious person, and my father, Joseph Berman, was rather more serious. And like he always said to my mother, they were a bunch of squares. My mother is 98 and a half years old, and God bless her. She's still rather square. She's a product of the 1930s and the 1940s. She's a member of the greatest generation. And so when my father said that Joe and Joan Berman are a bunch of squares. See, he wasn't exaggerating. I'm not like that. I'm also not as serious as sometimes I can come across. And that's one of the beauties of this format is that I can be creative and I can elaborate and I don't get interrupted and I don't have people rolling their eyes because they're so tired of listening to me. After all, if you're still following this, then you have the patience to sit through this monologue, which many of my dear and beloved friends and family just they would be like, Carl, what's the point? Get to the point. My wife would be merciless and she'd say, Carl, enough. She says that to me at least 3 times every day because I talk too much. Be that as it may, life is good. Life is sweet. Life is special. It's a Wednesday evening as it happens right now, although you could be watching this on any given day of the week, in any given month, in any given year, because once it goes up on my YouTube, it ain't going down. It is a blog video archive, but it's also in real time. It's just a wonderful thing. The internet is like the proverbial information superhighway that President Bill Clinton and Vice President Albert Gore described it that it would be way, way, way back in the early 1990s. It has become exactly what they described it to be, and it's a wonderful thing. And I'm not a Democrat, by the way, nor am I a Republican. Maybe next time I'll talk about Monica Lewinsky because believe it or not, Monica Lewinsky is on a roll. She's got her own video, YouTube, which I was just enjoying today. And there's nobody like her. She's a unique individual. She is a celebrity who unfortunately had her name dragged into the public spotlight when she was not ready for that. And she was at the center of a global phenomenon that none of us could have possibly predicted or fathomed, least of which herself. And she seems to have come through it rather well. And it's quite an interesting thing. And I mention that only because even though I do credit former presidents and vice presidents for their leadership contributions, I don't take sides. And that includes today's current situation as well. Thank you so much for your time. What a pleasure to have an audience watching me at the ripe old age of 64 and a half, stage 1 cancer warrior, not victim here. No, 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 no. Fighting hard to live my best life and enjoy each day. And by the way, I'm going to be cancer free one of these days. And you're going to hear all about it. And I promise not to eat my words and take that back. So there you go. Wow. What a lot of fun this has been. This is just amazing. All right. Thank you, my audience. I appreciate you. I value you. Please click the like and subscribe buttons on my YouTube channel because that's the numbers that I'm trying to boost up. And if you found me on Facebook or on LinkedIn, what an awesome thing those platforms are as well. People complain about LinkedIn. People say LinkedIn is dying. LinkedIn is no longer the job referral and the job networking and the job finding site that it was. They say, I don't care because guess what? I ain't looking for a job. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm running a business of one. I'm an attorney. I run my own law practice. I have so much work. I have clients, I have cases, I have deadlines, I have projects, which speaking of which, it's getting late and I must end this episode tonight. So a toast to you. This is my bottle of hot water here. It's actually a travel mug, hot water. Go ahead, have a strong one. Go ahead, enjoy. Why not? Cheers to you.